Friends and watchers of illusion, welcome to another Delboy film retrospective and unboxing. And this one came about because on Wednesday I was doing my normal live chat with my good friend Ian Hill, the Ramblings. Yes, on Wednesday I have a chat with him, and we've got quite a few people that come in and we discuss films. And a conversation was going on between Stephen Mules and Cy Robson. Sorry if I destroyed those names, but they're two well-respected and likable people that come into our chat and watch our content. And they were talking about a film that we're going to be discussing today. So I might as well just show the front cover up to it. It's called Biggles Adventures in Time, although the Adventures in Time part is the American name for it. But they were talking about Biggles, and of course, I remember Biggles very well. But I got a lot of information wrong because at the top of my head, I'm going, "Oh yeah, that's about this and that and the other," and and I got a few obviously facts wrong because no prep. It's all memory, which what makes these chat things really good. And anyway, I'd mentioned that it's a time travel story, isn't it? It's something like the grandson of the main character is time traveling back, and it's to foil some type of Nazi plot. Parts of that is correct, a lot of it wrong. So the best thing for me to do really is talk a little bit about how it came about, what the plot's about, and my memories, which is what I like to do, is the memory part. So Biggles, it's a 1986 film directed by John Hough. Now, I kept thinking to myself, do I know who John Hough is? And I had to do a little bit of research, but of course I know who John Hough is. He did a lot of Hammer horror films and Disney films, most noticeably for the Disney is Escape to Witch Mountain, which I remember very well from Cinema Club when I went as a child. But the Hammer horror stuff, I mean, he's done Twins of Evil, The Legend of Hell House. So, of course, there's a couple of Hammer horror films that I've got in my collection that I like to watch. And a little bit later on, he's done a TV series like American Gothic. So, quite a well-respected director. And from what I know, before he actually became a director, he was working on the second unit for such shows in the 60s as The Baron, The Avengers, The Champions, and I believe he was going to direct a James Bond film, but it fell through. I think it was to do with that awful period of time where Roger Moore was leaving and Timothy Dalton was going to take over. There was a big hiatus, and directors were therefore coming on and going because they need to film. So, of course, he went on and decided that he would direct Biggles instead of waiting around in case the Bond film never happened. What we've got then is we've got Ernie Vincere. I can't pronounce that very well. He's the cinematographer anyway. Now, I didn't know too much about him because the only film that made sense to me was a film that had Sean Penn and Madonna in called Shanghai Surprise. And that wasn't a big film for me, but I do know that it had a big news thing going on during the production of that film. There's a couple of other things to note in here. We've got John Groves. Now, John Groves is the screenplay writer for this. I ummed and ahed about whether I've heard that name before, and then it came to me. My good friend Denny and I were talking about War of the Worlds, the TV series from the 80s. And whenever he talks about something, I usually go back and watch one episode, just to remind myself and go, oh yeah, what a great show that was. And of course, he wrote quite a few of those stories. And an unusual fact about John Groves is that he did the Back to the Future ride. He wrote the story. When you go to America and you go on their theme park rides, there's usually a big waiting queue. And the Back to the Future ride is very popular at Universal, or it was when I went. And this was in the early 90s. And there was all these TV screens. And while you were waiting, there was a little snippet of video footage showing Doc through time and all of this sort of stuff. And telling the backstory of the ride that you were going to go on. So, yes, I knew about him as well. So I think that's enough really about that, other than the composer. The music was done by Stanislaus Sherevitz. I can't pronounce that very well. Now, I did have the vinyl record because I checked my diaries, but I don't have it anymore. And apparently it's not come out on CD, and so therefore is still only available on vinyl and cassette. Now, I knew the music of this mainly from the main track, because the main track is called Do You Want to Be a Hero? And I believe the words of that came from the frontman of the band Yes. So it's got quite a bit of a pedigree. But the music in this film, I'll mention it now, is a mix of great and bad. At the time that this film came out, it's very synth based, you know, as a 1980s film is. But we're talking about a film called Biggles, where we're talking about time traveling between the 80s, where synth would be great, but a lot of the scenes are based in the past, World War One, totally sort of like out of step, really, with what the film is. So, yeah, it didn't get a fantastic review either for the music. So I think we'll go back now to talk a little bit about what Biggles is, and the best advice I can give really is, I'm going to read it out verbatim really, so it will sound a little bit like a robot, but it goes like this. In the mid 1980s, a catering salesman, Jim Ferguson, who's played by Alex Hyde-White, and I'll talk about him in a moment, is living in present-day New York City. But he's involuntarily transported in time to 1917, where he saves the life of a flying corpse pilot, whose name is James Bigglesworth, or to his friends, Biggles, played by Neil Dickson. After he is shot down on a photo recon mission, before he can work out what's happened, Jim is zapped back to present-day 1980s. At that exact point, a knock is at the door, and he's visited by Biggles' former commanding officer, William Raymond. And that's where Peter Cushing comes in, who is now an air commodore living in Tower Bridge in London. Raymond tells him that about his theory that Ferguson and Biggles are time twins, spontaneously being transported through time when the other is in mortal danger. Together, Ferguson and Biggles will fight across time against the odds to stop the Germans' secret sound weapon. This secret sound weapon would alter the fabric of time, and basically, if Ferguson doesn't sort of like succeed, he'd be trapped in 1917 forever, and basically the future would never have happened. So that's basically the plot. And what can I say about the sort of like actors in this? And we've got Neil Dickson, who plays Biggles. Now, he hasn't done an awful lot since Biggles. In fact, it was his first film, and he sort of reenacted the part again 2 years later in another film. But other than that, he's only really done TV work and had a good career as doing voiceovers. But Alex Hyde-White is sort of like similar. It was in his first feature-length film. But hang on a minute, Hyde-White, doesn't that surname sort of like bring a memory back to you? It did for me. And then I remembered, yes, his father is Wilfred Hyde-White. Very, very famous actor in many, many 60s films. Absolutely and TV series. Absolutely loved him when I was a kid. You'd recognize him instantly when you see a picture of him. Marcus Gilbert, who's also in the film, has done quite a lot of films. I mean, if I mention the words Rambo 3, Army of Darkness, he's also been in Doctor Who in the very first story of the last season, Battlefield. Yeah, um, he's in the film. I think he's one of the army corps, um, and he's a very authoritative figure. You can't miss him. He'll sort of dominate the scene when he comes on. But then we come to William Hopkins. I can never pronounce these. Hopkins. A quite largest actor, but you'd recognise him instantly because from our childhoods, he was in 3 major big films: Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Batman, the 1989 Batman at that. You can't miss him when you see him as a character. In this particular film, I think he's a little bit underused. Seems to be a foil in the film, working for the agency that Ferguson works for. And then we've got Francesca Gonshaw. Now, she's sort of like a double agent in this film. When she stood up for the first time in this film, I thought, I've seen you somewhere before. And of course, she was in A Lower Low. One of the, what they call hookers of the war period. But I think she was Marie, I think was the name, in A Lower Low. She was only in the first 3 seasons, but you can't miss her. Very, very gorgeous looking, thin, black, long hair. You know, basically gorgeous. And that sort of like sums up the cast, really. And the film I've already explained about. So then there's my memories. So I remember going to see this with a girl that I really wanted to be my girlfriend, but it never actually really ever occurred. I went to see her brother an awful lot. We set up a computer club. We used to play Commodore 64 games and Commodore Amiga games when I used to take my A1000 over there. But we went to many films together. We rented films out and watched them with parents whenever there wasn't a game that we wanted to play that week. You know, not every week were we flush enough to be able to buy games. So I remember seeing this twice with her, once at the pictures and once on video. And I remember also buying this film on Selfa on video. I never, though, bought it on DVD or any other medium, Laserdisc. But I remember playing it over and over again on VHS. Probably just to reminisce about, again, that girl I never got. Her name was Jo. Fond memories of that particular period. And I remember when I went to the cinema, a lot of things were happening that just didn't make sense in this film. And that's not to put a downer on the film straight away. But even then, when I was watching a film called Biggles, I was wondering, why is Biggles a secondary character? It's his own film. But it wouldn't work any other way because you needed the other time twin, Ferguson, to keep travelling back in time. So it's really going to be his story and how he helps his friend Biggles through, you know, no explanatory reason on why they keep travelling through time. I mean, it just started to happen, and then there's the mission, and that's the end of the film, basically. So we don't know if they had further future stories or anything because there was never any second film. The other thing I noticed was as many action sequences there is, and I'll tell you what, the stunt work in this film is absolutely fantastic. There's no other planes or things in the sky. There's not an awful lot of army military equipment. And even I noticed that the planes didn't seem right for World War One. They seemed more World War Two than World War One. But they're a beauty to see, you know, when they're flying, and there are some battles, but it's only ever two planes on the screen at the same time. And that's the same for sort of like the other stunt sequences, because it featured the very first stunt trial of a helicopter landing on a moving train. It was the first time that was done. So I talked a little bit about computers there, and that's quite right. This fits in with that background of mine where I played games, and I don't know if I can show you this, but I'll try. But if I go to my game recording screen, I might be able to bring this game in and see if it works. Well, there we go. So this is the Commodore 64 version of Biggles, which I haven't seen or played for a long time. Don't know if it'll work either, but we'll give it a go. So there we go. Hopefully you can hear me still. I don't know if you can hear the music. See if I can turn it up a little bit. Okay. And all I remember about this is that it's got several parts of the film in this. And you go through time, and you're doing different things in each time zone. So I'll start this off, and I think I can start it off. Like I say, best intentions. We'll put it on. There we go. And there we go. So I start off in a plane. I think I have to bomb these things. And if you die, you then move forward in time to another scene from the film. So now this is where you have to jump across the rooftops. If I die there, you go then to the next part, which is in no man's land. I think I have to get to the end. I need to go down these ladders to get grenades, because otherwise I won't be able to get to certain parts. Remember that. Because I think there's a sort of barrage in a bit. There we go. Yeah, look at that. How are you supposed to go past that? Grenade that. I can't. No, I'll go this side. I ran out of grenades. And then I died. And then we're back on the roof. Yeah, got across, and you sort of got two characters here. So this is Biggles and myself, I think. You've got to just keep going across the roofs, hoping that this guard's not going to do anything, and that you don't get discovered. Keep going across. Notice there's a guard in the window. Go across. Doing alright, yeah? He says, bloody hell. And then you're back to the plane bit, and I die, and etc, etc, etc. I don't think we really need to see any more of that. And we'll go back to my camera and just wind up. Well, basically what we're going to do is open up what does the Blu-ray look like. So it's a standard case. It's only arrived today. I watched last night the film again with a HD transfer, uncompressed, so I know sort of what the picture quality is like. I'll tell you what, it's not bad at all. Just like any Blu-ray, the colours just don't pop like a 4K. But it's very good. So we've got Biggles there. Look, you can see Biggles on the front there. And there's the back cover with the story. I will say this, it's very, very lacking in extras. My God, it's just got the trailer. In a standard Blu-ray case, it seems inside it's got the quad poster. for the film. By the way, it got a royal premiere over in the UK. And you've got a picture disc with nothing else underneath. So I'll just show you the picture disc again. Quite nice. Yes, this got a royal premiere. It cost $7 million to make, but only made 1.2 million back. And when it was released in America, it fared even less, only thousands of dollars. However, the video sales bumped it into profit. So it actually did make money. So that's my little retrospective of Biggles. I'm going to give it a middling on this. It's not a thumbs up, it's not a thumbs down, because just like watching anything back, I watched this as a very early teen. I loved all the ideas of commandos, war, science fiction, time travel, all of that sort of stuff. But even I could see that the effects were pretty poor. It had those sort of like neon blue stroby type effects that you'd get from He-Man's sword if you were watching He-Man and the Masters of the Universe from that same time period. It could almost have been a TV movie if it weren't for the fact that it's so beautiful in its cinematography of the plane, the flying plane parts and the train parts and all of the stunt work. The standout thing about it when I watched it was just how enigmatic Peter Cushing is. He stole every scene that he's in it, and he's not in very much. And there's another baffling part that I've got in the film, in the fact that he was the commanding officer of Biggles, but when you travel back in time, you never see him. Wouldn't it have been great to have seen Peter Cushing as a young man, and then see him when he travels back to his own time? You see him as he is there. It's not really explained too much about this time twinning travel thing, but it does have shades of Quantum Leap. But Quantum Leap is explained so much better. You know, you travel into the inside of the body of someone, and then when the job is done, you then time travel into the next body. This one is you're traveling back to help someone because they're in more moral danger. But how did that start? Did it ever end, even though the mission ends? All unknown. But I don't remember asking my dad about the books of Biggles. It's sort of like well known. It's written by a set of books. I've forgotten the name now. What is it? John something. Oh, W.E. Johns. And apparently it was going to be made into a film in the early 60s, but never got done. I think it was to do with budgetary reasons and location footage. But I digress. I look at it. If I look at it with rose-tinted glasses, I would say I have full enjoyment with it. If I watch it now, you look at how cheesy it is. But if you're going to go in, just see it with child eyes. That's the best thing that I can advise to do. It's perfectly okay in Blu-ray. I don't think it needs anything like a 4K transfer. Don't think there's anything that would pop out that would make it need it. But I will say, totally nostalgic mind bomb of a film to watch. A great time looking at it again. And I think anybody that is thinking about getting it will have a great time too. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye and salute until the next time. Hope you've enjoyed this. I will leave a link to my friend Ian Hill, The Ramblings channel, because that's where this whole sort of like film watching occurred for this film, Biggles. And with that, again, salute. Goodbye.